If you don't know, we're doing this every Thursday, and following last week we've had some more questions come through, so I'm with Mark, our director, to ask him the questions that we've had this week. So the first one that we've got is the 3 key questions that viewers should ask. What should they be asking?
So what should viewers be asking when they're walking around the property?
Yeah.
We get an assortment of questions from viewers looking around the property. I don't know whether people as they're looking around have that in their head. They're going to ask, 3 sort of key questions. Most people would normally ask where the boiler is and to have a look at the boiler. I think that's a really good point, because obviously boilers, electric, that sort of thing is a really potentially expensive thing to do in a property, or certainly one of the more expensive things. What I would actually ask if I was a viewer of a property is not only where the boiler is, but when it was installed and when it was last serviced. So when was the boiler installed, when it was last serviced, and the same for the electrics. I think it's sometimes worth going that extra step. It's all well and good looking at a boiler, but I don't know about you, I can look at a boiler and think, yeah, that looks fairly new, and actually it could be 15, 20 years old, something like that. So most people's knowledge of boiler, unless you're in that trade, means that it probably doesn't mean very much to actually look at it. And when people are selling a home, most solicitors from the buying side will actually ask if the boiler has been serviced and when it was last serviced. So ask about the boiler is always a key question, but go that little bit deeper and ask about whether it's been serviced, and same would be with the electrics. I think a really good question for viewers to ask as well is why are the current owners moving from the property? So how long have they been there and why are they moving from the property? And it might be personal circumstances. Hopefully whoever's showing around will know those reasons, but I always think if somebody's been there for 25 years and they're moving because the kids have moved out, that's a really good sign that that's been a very happy family home for the previous or the people selling it. So I think that's always a really, really good thing to ask, and I don't think that's being too nosy. And then finally, I think at the moment, I would always, if it was me personally looking, I would ask about parking. Where do you park? How many cars do you have and where do you park? Particularly if you've got, maybe if you're a 3 or 4 car family, sometimes in more modern developments, there's not loads and loads of room. So that's an important question for me, just from a practicality perspective. So I would ask boiler electrics, and not only where are they, but when were they last serviced. I would ask why they're selling, and I would also look into the parking. And that they would just be the 3 that I would ask. Most people also ask, which is 4, so sorry I'm cheating, about loft. Is the loft boarded and can we stick Christmas decorations on there?
Yeah, definitely. The second question we've had, which I've actually had a lot this week whilst I've been doing our sort of post-valuation calls, is why do estate agents value so differently? So why can one value like 40 grand higher than another or lower?
Oh yeah, which one should you go with? Most people, and I completely understand this, most people will be inclined to go with the highest valuation, and therefore some estate agents will, maybe intentionally, maybe not intentionally, but some estate agents will choose a higher valuation in order to win the instruction to get that property to sell with them. And the reason that estate agents value so differently ultimately is because the estate agent is their own person. They're not tied. Our industry doesn't have any compulsory regulator, so people can go out and say they're an estate agent, tomorrow almost, without any real training or any experience behind them. So that might be one of the reasons for the big difference in value, but also it comes down to personal interpretation. So I might have seen a house that's sold next door for a certain price because I've done my research before I've walked through the front door that the other estate agent hasn't seen, and vice versa. And of course, how much somebody is willing to pay for a property automatically is the price that it will sell at. But it comes down to an estate agent's opinion. So one estate agent might give a higher price simply to win the instruction. What I would say, if you are thinking of selling your home and you have had this big difference in valuations, is you probably shouldn't choose your estate agent purely on valuation, but actually the service that they're going to give for you. I think, if you're choosing the estate agent because they valued your house 50 grand higher, you've got to maybe question, have they backed that up with comparable evidence? And have they done the research before they've come through your front door to say, this is the price and this is why and this is where I see it fits. We always look at properties that have sold nearby and properties that have been on the market, maybe haven't sold, and we always provide that information to the seller. And really, I think when you're selling a property, you need to take responsibility that ultimately you set the price, not the estate agent. The estate agent gives you their opinion, but you could overrule that estate agent and say, no, I want to go on at a slightly different price. The estate agent may or may not agree. But you've got to take responsibility for listening to the research that the agent has done on your behalf, and then choose the price yourself. And ultimately, price is probably the single most important part of a marketing mix. It's certainly one of the most important, if not the most important. And if you get that price wrong, you sit above the market, and properties do go stale when they've been on the market too long. So price is really important. Ultimately, estate agents can say whatever price they choose, which is why you can often get big fluctuations. I would say to people selling, do your own research both before and during the appointment with the agent. See, don't feel free to question that agent's judgment if you feel it's wrong.
Yeah. So the following question is, do I need a solicitor to sell my house? And I suppose the same goes for buyers as well. Do we need a solicitor to buy?
Yeah. Do you need a solicitor to buy and sell a house? You actually don't need a solicitor to buy and sell a house, but I would highly recommend it. And if somebody said to us that they wanted to do their own conveyancing, we would strongly advise them against it. But yeah, you need a solicitor. Was the first one buying or selling? Selling.
Yeah.
So yeah, you need a solicitor when you're selling your property to basically to prepare the contract. So the seller's estate agent prepares the legal contract, and then really the seller's solicitor's job is actually to answer questions from the buyer's solicitor. You will really need a solicitor when you're buying a property. It's called the conveyancing part of the transaction. It's all the legal bits, and you'll need your solicitor to do the checks on the property to make sure the property that you're buying has good title. So basically that the people that are selling it have authority to sell it, and that it will be registered correctly with the land registry so that you're recognised as the homeowner. And actually, what a lot of people don't know, if you're buying a property with a mortgage, the solicitor will actually be acting for you, but also for your mortgage lender. So if you're buying a property for a mortgage with a mortgage, you will definitely need a solicitor. But yeah, I would say, well, I was going to say 99%, but I don't think we've actually sold a property where somebody's trying to do their own conveyancing. I know I had a client once say to me, "Oh, I want to do my own conveyancing," and it made me shudder a little bit. To be perfectly honest with you, because all of that legal process and the difference between a good solicitor and a bad solicitor can keep a chain together. So yes, you absolutely need a solicitor, in my opinion. Choose one that comes recommended and that is happy to say, these are the timescales that I'm going to work to.
Yeah. Okay, so should I upgrade my kitchen and or bathroom before I sell?
Oh, we get asked this a lot. This is a real common question. You'll know from booking appraisals in the appointment, people say, I'm thinking about doing the bathroom, do you think I should do it? I say, let's come around and look at it. And ultimately, it depends on the property. If you've got a property, you're selling a probate property, so unfortunately someone's passed away and you're thinking, right, should we stick a new kitchen in, will it increase the price? But then the rest of the property might be quite dated. The answer would be no. But if you're selling a modern property or a modern style of property that the kitchen's 15 years old, my answer might be, well, yes, it's certainly more likely to be a consideration. Ultimately, I think more often than not, most people will want to put their own stamp on a property. So you could choose a kitchen that somebody buying the house rips out, the week after they've moved in. So most properties, I would say, kitchen and bathroom, I tend to lean on the side of don't do it rather than do it and price it accordingly. But it does really depend on the style of the property.
Okay, and the final 5 out of 5 today is, how should I prepare for evaluation?
That's a very good question. How should I prepare for evaluation? So, if I was selling my house, ultimately we would get probably a few estate agents out. Well, they might not come out to my house because they're not in the business. But if I was not in the business and selling a house, I would ask a number of estate agents out to combat the earlier question that we talked about with the variation in valuations. And then I would be preparing my house as if I was preparing for a viewing. And don't get me wrong, estate agents can look past it, but I think you still want to present your property as you would, unless you're going to ask them that question about kitchens or bathrooms, or you're wanting their advice on staging or dressing rooms and that sort of thing. But I would be aiming to impress the estate agent as I would aim to impress a potential viewer. And some people feel inclined as we're walking around with them to point out all of the bad points and all of the good points. Often it's more about the rooms, the location, the size, the presentation that we need to know, rather than back kitchen doors hanging off, for example. Normally people can pick up. So I would present the house to its full potential at the stage that you are at. So you might be thinking, should I put a kitchen in, should I not? I would always get the agent round before having that, before spending that money and get their opinion. But clean up, clear the sides down, make the property look. I suppose some people say about depersonalising it. I think there is an element of that when you're preparing to go to market for sale. The removal of personal items. If you've got a lot of pictures on the wall, for example, take some of them down, or pictures on mantelpieces, on windowsills, that sort of thing. Take those down, because I would recommend taking those down in the event of a viewing, because you want to be able to get your viewers to visualise themselves living in that house, and if you can depersonalise it easily, then that's what I would do. But I would actually do that and be prepared to go to market when you invite the estate agent round. So I would be looking at all of that, decluttering, depersonalising, and putting boxes of things in the loft in preparation for moving. I would do that before I got the estate agent round potentially, and then when I would be showing them around, I would be just answering their questions, rather than people feel like they have to give us loads and loads of information, but actually it's often the property that's important, and the person's circumstances, rather than the ins and outs of the house. So I think to decluttering, cleaning process, and presenting it as if you were going to market when you invite the agents around, because you want the agents to see it as the viewers would see it, in my opinion. And then the agents will be able to give you advice around when is right to appoint your solicitors, for example, and what steps you need to take, if any, to go to market. But I would always be prepared to go to market when I'm inviting an agent into my house. That would be my personal opinion.
Yeah, I agree. So that was our live 5 out of 5.
Easy for you to say.
It's a bit of a tongue twister, but we'll be doing this every week. So if you have any questions that you want us to answer next week, just pop them in the chat or pop us an email and let us know.